Hey everyone. Ooh, it's been a while since I've done a live, but I was really feeling called today to share some stuff with you guys. Give me just a second and I am going to share this over to my personal page as well so we can reach as many people as possible. Hope everyone is having a beautiful Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on where you are in the world. It is really cold here. Yes. All right. So let's just take a moment. That's set up so I can see. Yeah, so I hope you guys are all having a beautiful Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on where you're at in the world. Like I said, it's been a while since I've done a live, and I just felt really called to jump on here. Based on a couple of conversations I've had recently, it has me really thinking about perception and fear and about our willingness to choose better for ourselves. And so yeah, I just wanted to have a conversation with you guys around that. So let's see. So I had a conversation last week with a client friend of mine, and we were talking about, like, I was actually doing some market research with her and talking to her about, because as my business has scaled and as I've sort of found my footing in this new sort of niche that it's become apparent is my real purpose in the world, which, if you don't know, really what my business and healing and coaching practice is really about helping women, particularly high performing, high achieving women who've done everything, that they were supposed to do or should do in their life, to really ditch the grind. And what I mean by grind is really anything that's not, lighting you up, doesn't set your soul on fire, doesn't fill your bank account and your soul at the same time. And really step out of this paradigm of, I have to do something that's not fulfilling in order to receive the money or other material goods that I desire, right? To create the life that I really desire. And so as it's become apparent that this is really my soul mission on the planet, is to help these women who, are high performing, high achieving, who have really built this beautiful life, but still feel like something is missing, because I know what's missing is the purpose part, right? And regardless of what your beliefs are or are not, what I have found throughout my own journey and through working with my clients is that for us to really, for women like us, right? I'm not saying every human is the same, but for women like us and the women that I work with, it's not enough to create the money or to create the family or to create the body or to create this life experience if you're doing it in a way that doesn't fill you up, that doesn't really help you see what a difference you're making in the world, help you build a legacy, help you leave the world a better place than you found it, help you do it in a way that, like, really is your passion, your purpose, what really feels good to you, right? And so I was having this conversation with this client / friend of mine, and she was helping me do some market research as I'm getting clearer and clearer on who my clients are and how my business is the best way I can help women, right? And she was doing this beautiful job of, like, reflecting back to me some of the stuff. And it was interesting because when we got to talking about, like, the images that I use on, social media and stuff, and, like, my look, she's worked with me in a coaching capacity, so she understands how I am able to hold space for people, how supportive I am, like, on top of all the strategic and business knowledge that I have. I'm also, one of my main goals is to make sure that my clients feel fully safe and fully supported and fully loved so that they can go out and explore and really build from there. And so she knows this about me because she's worked with me, right? And what she said was, I'm not portraying that, basically, right? Like, I'm not portraying that in my messaging as I'm calling people in, as I'm sharing with you guys, right? Because a lot of my images are very powerful images, right? And I ride a motorcycle and I wear a lot of black. And so it was interesting to get that from her. And basically what she was saying to me was, that's one of her favorite things about the way that I hold space for her. And that's one of like what she sees as really a powerful creation ability that I have for people. And so as I was doing this market research, she was basically telling me, right, like you're not showing people that side of yourselves. And it feels very powerful to share that with people because she values that in me. And that's one of the reasons she likes to work with me. And so I found that really interesting because then I started going back and looking at my images and I was like, yeah, she's right? Like other than like on my stories when I'm sharing with the dog or, you know, some things like that, most of my images are very powerful. And that's a side of me too, right? And then I got into this conversation with one of my mentors. She was doing a training that I was on, and she was talking about like soulmate clients and like, are they able to see themselves in you, right? We were having this conversation, and it was interesting because we got to talking about my dreadlocks, right? I made a choice to get dreadlocks. I was still in the corporate world, right? And I remember the day after I got them done, I went to work and I was nervous because I was, you know, an IT professional. I had my own project management business. I was working on a multi-million-dollar project for a local government agency, like a big deal. And it was a government office, right? And if I told you which branch of the government, you would laugh, but I'm not gonna share that part. And I remember that day that I walked in, that I was going to work with the dreadlocks, right? And I was nervous. And I remember thinking, like, did I screw this up? Is this going to blow my image? Like, what are they going to think of me? All of this stuff. And of course, no one cared. I mean, yeah, it was a topic of talk. It's not something that's standard in corporate America, right? Like, especially for someone in their early 40s who has built this like lucrative project management, like I lead teams of people, right? And to top it off, I wasn't an employee. It was a contract position, right? My own consulting company that I was working through. And so when we were talking about the dreadlocks, it was funny for me to reflect back like, oh, you know, I've had them for so long that they're just a part of my look now. And I love them and I love the way they look on me and they make me feel powerful and I enjoy them. And I've always appreciated that about people. And as a side note, my natural hair is very thin and not a lot of fun, right? Like, so it's a fun thing for me to do. And because I ride a motorcycle, I can, you know, wear a helmet and not have to worry about it. But it was really interesting to me to get into this conversation and this reflection of perception. And like, when I start to take that even further, the dreadlocks were a conscious choice because I liked the way they look. I knew there was a potential fallout. I knew there was a potential ramification. I knew that people would judge me, and they do, right? Like, I still get rash judgments. Some people love them, some people hate them. But it was a conscious choice for me because it was something I chose that I like, that makes me feel good about myself, that I enjoy. And I will probably never get rid of them because I do love them. But as I went deeper down this like thought process and this reflection around how I look and what that says to people, I took it even further and started to think about, like, when we see images or videos or whatever of people on social media, what are the judgments that we jump to? And what are the judgments, not even about them so much as about ourselves, right? Because like, I've had a lot of feedback lately from people around like wanting to work with me and loving what I'm doing in my business and really like how brave I am and all of this stuff, right? Around being able to show up and really sharing and really like claiming my own power and all of this. And it had me reflecting back on how when we look at other people's images, we make a ton of assumptions about where they are in their life, right? And how they feel and how easy it must be for them. That was a story that I used to tell myself, right? Like, I had all of these stories around how I never wanted to be in front of the camera. Like, it's taken me a lot of work to be able to build this business because I am the face of this business. I get to show up, but I had all these stories around how I always wanted to be behind the camera. I wasn't pretty enough or smart enough or, you know, I don't know, whatever, thin enough to really build a business like this. But the reason I chose to do it anyway is because I know that my mission and my purpose here on the planet requires me to be able to show up in front of you guys so that I can help more people, right? Like I can't sit in my office and not partake in social media. I can't not share with you guys. I can't not show up if I want to be able to make the difference in the world that I know I came here to make. And so for me, I look at those women that I'm actually getting kind of emotional. Sorry. Actually, you know what? I'm not sorry. Like I am this passionate about what I do. And that's the reason that I show up the way I do always, even when it's uncomfortable, even when I'm afraid, even when I don't feel like it, even when I would rather be doing something else. For instance, today my dog is sick. I wasn't going to share this, but my dog is sick and he's laying here on the floor in front of me. I didn't want to do this live. I wanted to cuddle my dog, but it's so important to me that the women that see this, and men too, I just work primarily with women, that the people who see this understand that there is so much more available to you, and that when you look at other people that are doing what you want to do or living the life that you want to live, let's not jump to conclusions about how they feel or how they got there, right? Like I don't think there's anyone who's living their purpose, their passion, their dream life that hasn't had to overcome some kind of fear or some kind of objection or some kind of self-doubt or some kind of, worth issue, who hasn't had to decide, right, that they're worth it and that their mission here on the planet is worth it. So that was kind of the first thing I wanted to share with you guys, is really not only let's not judge other people so harshly, but let's also not judge ourselves so harshly, right? Because if there's a burning passion in you, if there's something in you that you feel like you were meant for more, or there's something missing, you are always capable of having more. And if you look at me, right, like I'm in my early 40s. You could call it a midlife crisis if you want to. But I literally shut down a 20-year career, a very lucrative business that I had spent basically my whole adult life building, because I knew it wasn't the thing I was here to do. I had built the life I wanted to live externally on the, physical. I have an amazing husband. I have beautiful daughters. I have, I had all, what we wanted physically in the life, but there was still something missing. And I knew that what I was doing was not my purpose on the planet. And I knew that I was here for a bigger reason. And one thing about me is I am completely unwilling to get to the end of my life and feel like I didn't do everything I could do to live the best life I could and to be the best person I could and to make the biggest difference I can. And so it was worth it to me to take this risk, because I knew that there was so much more, right? There was so much more I was here to do. There was so much more available to me. And I will never regret that. But it doesn't mean there wasn't fear, right? It doesn't mean there aren't days where I'm like, what have I done? Like, really, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? It doesn't mean there aren't days where I'm not like, ugh, I don't want to do this anymore. Or actually, there aren't days like that. There aren't days where I don't want to do this anymore. But there are days where I'm scared, or where I'm confused, or where, like I don't feel like I'm doing enough or being enough, or, whatever. Or sometimes I question myself and I'm like, really, can I help these women? Can I help them the way I want to help them, right? But I'm so committed to my purpose that I don't let that stuff stop me. I just don't. Because the work we're here to do in the world is entirely too important for us to let those little stories that we tell ourselves stop us, right? Like, most of us grew up in a society where we were told, like, you have to do X, Y, and Z. And if you do those things, then that makes you successful, right? Like, you get good grades in school, you go to college, you get a good job or build a, good career, you get married, you have kids, right? Like, there's these things, you buy the house, right? Like, there's this formula we were given to say, if you do these things, then you're successful. Well, it doesn't work that way. Like, for some, that is the formula, right? Like, but for me, and I'm not alone, right? I did all of those things, and I woke up one day, and I've shared this story before, but I'll share it again. My kids were teenagers. My daughters are beautiful. I have always wanted to be a mom. Like, they're the pride and joy of my life, which makes what I'm about to say even worse for me, right? My husband's amazing. We had, we were stable. I had a good job. We had the house, right? We were going on vacations. We have great friends and family around us, right? Like, all of the boxes were checked. And I was standing in my house one day holding my car keys in my hand, thinking to myself, if I leave this house, I'm never coming back. If I leave here, I will go find a cliff to drive off or something. Like, I can literally no longer live my life. And I felt so fucking guilty for feeling that way because my life looked perfect. My kids were amazing. My husband was amazing. We were very good, financially stable, had a good job, all the things, right? All the boxes were checked. And I was dying on the inside. Dying. And I made a decision that day. It took me years to share this with my family, by the way. I made a decision that day that I was going to learn how to live, truly live, whatever that meant, or I might as well just give up, right? Like, I couldn't do it anymore. And every day since then, it's not that every day's been easy, but every day since then, I have continued to make the conscious choice to live, to really, truly live, whatever that meant for that day. And I know now, fast forward, like 7 years, I know now that what was missing from my life was purpose. I know now that what was missing, what had me dying on the inside, even though my life looked exactly like it was supposed to look to make me happy, that I was missing purpose. That my soul was crying out saying, this is not the answer. You came here for something else and this is not it. You can have that life. I'm not saying that I needed to give up that life, right? Looking back now, you get to have the life, but you don't have to do it according to the formula we've always been taught, right? And if we shut ourselves off from what lights us up, if we shut ourselves off from what we came here to do, if we shut ourselves off from our true purpose, then it's really hard to be happy even when all the boxes are checked. Wow, this is getting really heavy, but obviously someone needs to hear this or I wouldn't be sharing it, right? So I just want to encourage you, like, it doesn't have to be as heavy or as, crazy as what it was for me. But if you feel like, if you're that person who you look at your life and you're like, all the boxes are checked, I should be happy, I should feel good. And I'm not saying I never felt good, but there was definitely a big piece missing, right? If you're that perfect person, I just want you to know that it's a very real possibility that purpose is what's missing, right? That passion, that thing that you came here to do, that bigger mission, that bigger vision, that impact that you came here to make. Particularly if you're listening to me talk, I know that you're a heart-centered person. I know that you care about other people. I know that you care about leaving this world a better place than you found it. And if you don't have that, if you're not tapped into that and you're not doing that, it will leave a hole in you. And no matter what you do externally, you won't be able to fill that hole. And so you don't have to do what I did, right? Like, this is a 7+ year journey for me. And now, I do for a living what my soul came here to do. And I feel very grateful and very lucky that I have done that. But it doesn't have to be that big, right? Like, it could be that you just get to start looking at like what lights you up, doing more of what you're passionate about, finding out more of what that is. And the more you play in that and the more you have fun with that and the more you explore that, the more stuff will come online for you, right? Like, I truly believe that the more that we play into our purpose, the more layers of that unfold. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't know what to do with that, there are some really great ways to start to tap into that, right? One of the things that I love to help my clients with is like, what would you do if money and time were no issue, right? If you had all the money and all the time, what would you do with your time? What would you do in your life? Because oftentimes that question will lead us down the soul's path of we're not being influenced by money. We're not being influenced by time. We're not being influenced by society, right? We're just following what feels really good to us and lights us up on the inside. And that is a very good path to tap into your purpose, right? What are you passionate about? What lights you up? The other thing is, what are you really good at, right? Like, what really comes naturally to you? What are you really good at? What feels really easy to you? Because when you combine those two, you can start to see like, oh, this is what I could be doing in the world. And maybe it's something you want to volunteer at, or maybe it's something like you want to create a career out of, or maybe it's just something that you're like going to do on the side, right? It doesn't have to be like, I have to find this grand purpose and that's what I'm going to do for a living right this second. It might be that. but it doesn't have to be that, right? And the more of us who start to connect in with our purpose, you find that you also get to have everything else, right? Like there's this idea in society, I don't know, I think it's shifting now, but there has been this idea in society that like if you are a purposeful person and you follow your purpose and you're really committed to making a difference in the world, then you have to give up all these worldly possessions and like be a martyr, right? And it doesn't have to be that way. Actually, when you tap into your purpose and you start to live from that, you also get to have all of the other things that make you feel good in the world, okay? And I think it's so important that people hear that. But if you really truly want to have it all, right? You really truly want to be able to live into that and really receive everything externally and internally and do all the things, there's a couple things you have to be willing to do. One of those is being willing to explore, right? One of those is giving yourself permission to start to play with, well, what would my life look like? What could I do differently, right? But another big part of this is being willing to allow yourself to be worthy of receiving it. Because so many of us are walking around thinking that we're not good enough and that if we learn this thing or do that thing or change that thing about us, then we can have the life we want. Then we will deserve that. Or we don't think we're good enough to do the thing that our soul is calling us to, right? Like if I was sitting here going, okay, there's been times I've done this. Disclaimer. But if I was sitting here going, I'm not good enough at this, I don't know enough, I haven't been around enough, I need to learn 100 more things before I can help anyone, then I wouldn't be helping anyone, right? I'd still be over here in the corner, like working on myself, making myself be worthy. But I know that's not true. I know that's not true because what happens is we have unique life experiences, right? A unique life path and a unique purpose that actually lead us into this place where we are uniquely qualified to do certain things. I am uniquely qualified to help women who have been successful, who have checked all the boxes, who have done everything right, who are tired and still feel like something is missing. I am uniquely qualified to help those women transform this area of their life, right? That I'm uniquely qualified for that. So you are also uniquely qualified for whatever your purpose is and however that unfolds. And so we are doing everyone a disservice when we tell ourselves we're not good enough yet. We need this thing or that thing or to change that thing about ourselves, right? So you have to be willing to explore. You have to be willing to understand and allow yourself to see that you actually are good enough, that you actually are worthy, that you actually are capable of going down that path, right? And you also have to be willing to believe, not just in your ability to do it, but in the fact that that path actually does lead to everything you desire, right? Because for many of us, it's really hard for us to release those beliefs around, like, we have to do something we hate or that's miserable to earn money. We have to hate Mondays, right? Like, like this whole concept of dreading Monday makes me so sad because that means that there are millions and millions, maybe billions of us, right? Like getting up on Monday morning and going and doing something we hate for the sole benefit of receiving money. And don't get me wrong, I love money and I understand it's a requirement, right? Like we live in a society where we need money and I like to travel, I like to do things, I like to have nice things. Money is important to me. But what I've learned is that when we put money in this category of like, we have to trade time for money and we have to do shit that doesn't light us up and that is the struggle, in that category, then that's what we get in life, right? Because that's what we expect. And when you start to be willing to believe and to explore this idea that money can actually be a byproduct of living our best life, of living a life that's soul aligned, of living a life that lights us up and doing something in the world that makes a difference to us and to the world, right? And it seems sort of easy, right? Oh yeah, I just got to be willing to believe. But for a lot of us, it's really hard, right? Like it's not that it's hard to shift. It's that it's hard to even explore the possibility that that might be possible because we've been so inundated with this idea, right? Like how many times have you seen a post on Facebook or heard someone say like, ugh, Monday, it's a Monday, it's the Monday of Mondays, right? Like we just are surrounded with this idea that we just are expected to suffer through this so that we can live life in the off hours, right? And that's just so sad when so many of us spend so much time at work, right? And so really being willing to like shift the paradigm and shift those beliefs And then, yeah, just being willing to like receive whatever comes through when you start to play with this, right? Like whatever comes through in terms of like what you really would love to do if time and money were no object, what really lights you up, what you're really good at, like totally exploring this and saying, like letting it come through and not putting any constraints on it. So I was offering free sessions last week, and actually I'm doing it again this week because of this one I had with this beautiful lady. And in the conversation with her, what these sessions are is it's really about like exploring, they're called Fierce and Free sessions. And it's really about exploring this like idea of purpose and helping you like in an hour tap into deeper layers of your purpose and really get clarity on how would I monetize this, right? Like how would I receive money through living into this purpose of mine? And it's amazing what can happen in an hour. And having this conversation with this gal who I'm fully 100% in her vision now, right? Like I'm like calling her in as like a long-term soulmate client because I want to help her build this vision. But it was interesting because as we were talking, she was like telling me all these reasons why this wouldn't work and that wouldn't work. And we were talking about how basically what she said was she wants to do too many things and she doesn't know, you can't build a business around that, right? Like you got to pick something. And by the end of the conversation, we're fully into this vision of her creating this like amazing community and like movement basically for people who like all of these things. And we talked about business strategy and how she could possibly do that. And she's got homework to do all of this stuff, right? And we get to the end of this free session and I'm like, this never would have happened for her because what she told me was she was really nervous to get on the call. And by the end of it, she was like fully on board and had all these shifts. This would not have been possible if she hadn't been willing to show up and have this conversation, if she hadn't been willing to like put her beliefs aside for a minute and start to look at like what really was possible. And so I just am so on fire right now to share that with as many people as I can, right? Like what is truly possible when you put down these ideas that we've been given and that we've, built all this proof up around, and just exploring like what could this look like, and this woman is going to make a huge difference in the world, and she's going to be lucrative and successful doing it, and the world is going to be a better place because of what she has done. And that is the mission. That is my mission here, is to light as many people up as I can to do that. Whew. So, what do I want to say in closing? First of all, if this resonated with you and you want one of those free sessions, they're up for a couple of days, right? And I would encourage you, like, I would just encourage you, even if it scares you, to do it, right? Because that's the thing, right? We get to go past the fear and allow ourselves to feel something different and to see something different, to explore something different. And if she had let the fear get in the way, she would not be going down this path that she's going down now, which is basically everything, right? The other thing I'd like to share with you, you are worthy. You are enough. You are here for a reason. You get to experience a life that feels as amazing on the inside as it does on the outside. And if you're not in that place right now, I just want to encourage you to keep going. It's always possible. And if you have any questions, if you want to chat some more, I'm happy to have this conversation in Messenger or in the chat box. If you're catching this replay, I would love for you to hashtag replay so I know that you were here. And I just love you all so much. And I thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day.